Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel, Racing Pigeons with John Hunt, which is myself. Haven't been in good fettle the last few days. I've been bedbound with a bug, just feeling a little bit better now, so I thought I'd make this video. Sorry for the delay in it. So what we're going to be talking about today, talking part 2 of breeding, rearing, weaning young birds. So on part 1 I covered the feeding, etc. And so now we'll come on to the weaning bit. The weaning, yeah. The biggest mistake what I found people done is be too quick to move young birds over. Young birds that aren't ready to be moved over will go backwards before they go forwards. So the first thing I'm going to say is don't move young birds over too soon, which is a big mistake with a lot of fanciers done. I've done it myself, too keen to get them over, and then they've went backwards before they go forwards, and they knock yourself back weeks. So I didn't go off how old they were before they left. I went off if they were eating and feeding. So what I'd do, obviously when me feeding the way I've done, I'd start putting pots in instead of the trays once they got to an age where they need to be eating the cell. Up until then, I never ever put pots on. The old birds always has to come down to the floor to take the food up to feed them, unless they'll just sit there and eat out the pot and not feed the young birds. So what I found, I used to wait until young birds were on the floor in the stock loft, or I could see they were eating themselves, and then what I'd do, I'd move all the young birds, which I used to get across mostly together, except I had one or two, and I'd put them all on the stock loft floor before they got moved to the young bird loft. And then I'd put a tray full of corn down, and I'd leave that corn down. And then the young birds would get used to picking, going to the drinker, picking, going to the drinker. So within 2-3 days, you've got your young birds eating and drinking out of the drinker before they've even seen a young bird loft. Now this is going to save a lot of hassle when you move the young birds over, where you've got to dip their beaks in the water, etc., just to make sure that they're drinking. Whereas in the old bird loft, if they stay in the stock loft on the floor, even if they're not using the drinker, the hens are feeding them anyway, so it's not going to be a problem. And you'll find that the hens will come down and feed them as much as they would if they were in the boxes, but the main thing about this is getting the young birds to eat properly before they get moved over. Now I always used a whistle, even in the stock loft when the young birds were getting fed. When I used to put the tray in, take the tray out, put the tray in, take the tray out, every time I'd use a whistle, because them young birds from the word go would hear that whistle, which in the future it'd be that beck and call for food. So the young birds at this point would all be on the stock loft floor, and we'd all be getting feeding themselves or going to the drink of themselves, which is even more important to get the feed. So once we move the young birds over, they're all at an age where you don't need to mess about with putting straw on the floor. You don't need to mess about and worry about them having a drink or eating. But for the first few days, I just put the breeding wean down and left it down for them in the young bird loft for, say, maybe 2, 3, 4 days. I just left it in so they were still pick. After this, when I knew for a fact they were all eating and drinking, that's when they went onto the feed twice a day. Now, a big thing about young bird racing, I think, is massively done as well as overfeeding. I think the worst thing you can do with a young bird is overfeed, because young birds with cropfuls of food are just they're not going to listen. You're not going to get them in. They're just going to be a pain in the arse, and they don't need to be. So how I done it, I always used a whistle. Every time they got fed, there was always food waiting in that loft before the whistle went. so they didn't see me putting it down with a whistle or anything like that. I would lock the young birds out when they were out jumping about, just getting hunted around the loft and that. I'd go in before I opened the trap and I'd put their feed in. Now, how much, you might ask? Now, a lot of people will say you're starving them, you're underfeeding them and blah, 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 but I put 17.5 gram per pigeon twice a day. So 20 young birds times 17.5 gram. Don't ask us to answer to that. But anyway, that's how I did it, and that's how it worked. Now, I've done this up until the past 100-mile mark, but I'll talk about that in later videos. So the young birds got 17.5 gram twice a day. Now, I used omega-3 oil on the corn on twice a week. I think it was a Tuesday and Sunday, sorry. Anyway, I used it twice a week. I can't remember exactly what days, but twice a week omega-3 oil on the corn. The water I kept clean as much as I could, but I used a pro and prebiotics. It used to be off the late Nigel Corwood, I got it, but since then I swapped something else. I can't remember what it was, but it was just as good. Any probiotics for the young birds. I used to give them this twice a week on alternate days to when they got their omega-3 oil on the corn. Now, a lot of people will just put this and that on the water. Really, the corn that you feed should have enough vitamins for a pigeon without you having to put them in the water. So I'm not a big believer in vitamins. I never really used them apart from the pre and probiotics, and that was really for young birds or before treatment and after treatment with old birds. So the first couple of days, let them out, blow the whistle, and they haven't got a clue. But this is where you've got to have a bit of patience with them. When they go in the first few days, open the main doors, so as soon as one says, they all follow. Your pigeons are like sheep. So after a couple of days of doing that, that's when you move them to the proper traps. Now, I know a lot of fanciers these days have got the Sputnik traps and things like that, but I never ever used them traps. I just found it was just easier with, it's not even an open door, it's still the same as a Sputnik, but they're hitting a platform instead of a Sputnik, which I think is quicker for racers to get in and things like that. So from there, after day 2 or 3, I put a video on my shorts. That was my young birds that I had moved over. I had probably been over a week maybe then, something like that, in the shop. Click on. So as soon as they hear that whistle, in their head, feed's waiting in the loft, feed's waiting in the loft. So after 4 or 5 days, they're breaking their necks to get in the loft. And this will carry on all the way through 17.5 gram morning, 17.5 gram evening. The biggest thing I can advise people that I've done with young birds, and that I flew a very successful young bird, is routine. Routine is key. Now, if you let the birds out 7 o'clock one day, 9 o'clock the next day, I don't know, 6:30 in the morning the next day, the birds don't know whether they're coming or going, and they haven't got a routine structure. The routine for a young bird has to be bang on. I mean, sometimes I know it sounds ridiculous, I used to sit and wait to the minute. That's how obsessed I was. But anyway, that's the main keys, the key things for racing pigeons. So once the pigeons are going in by themselves with the whistle, with knowing the food's there, throw the trap, I'd give them another week of doing this, and then I'd get the jump mar or the flag amongst them and get them up. So they've only been over 2 weeks, and I'd get the flag. I mean, people will say you're taught this and that, but the reason I've done this, if you leave young birds to sit about for too long, especially if you're overfeeding, you'll have a nightmare getting them up in the sky. doing it this way, yes, they'll do a couple of laps and back down every day. A couple of laps and back down. Then before you know it, they gradually build up and build up. So that's the way I do it. I never used to leave my young birds lying about for too long. For the simple fact is, you'll not get them up in there. This is why I like getting all young birds over in one go. Well, within 10 days of each other, obviously. And then that way, you've got no late comers and they're hard to get up and it distracts the rest of your team and things like that. So that's the way I work it. Once the pigeons are up and flying, obviously start putting the flags up, get them used to the flag. Put the food in the loft, waiting for them, ready to come down out of the sky. Any that didn't come when you whistle down, they don't get fed. It's simple as that. They'll wait till the next feed and they'll be the first in the trap, I can guarantee it. So, sorry about that. So, we'll get the flag amongst them and then out to go. After a week, they'll be all batching, going round. Like I say, put the feed in, open the doors when the exercise time's up, get the whistle going, and they'll be down and in within seconds. I've got a video, I'll post it on my shorts sometime of them coming from training and or just exercising. I'm not sure. I've got a lot of videos, I'll post them all just one by one. And you'll see them breaking their necks to get in the trap because they know what's waiting. Because all the young bird racing's basket, home, feed. Basket, home, feed. That's what you train them. Also, what I've done when they were first put over is I basket trained them straight away. So instead of letting them out for half an hour, I'd put them in a basket for an hour, let them out the basket, they'd fly onto the platform where the trap is, the feed would be waiting and they'd go straight in. That's what I've done maybe for 2-3 times a week, and just basket trains them up until you get them up flying. Once they're up flying, like I say, twice a day, 17.5 gram. And if you work that out, people will say, well, that's starving them. Well, work it out, it's over an ounce. It's over an ounce a day. And people will say an ounce a day is enough. So 17.5 gram twice a day is over an ounce. So that's about all I can bring for young bird weaning. When the first, one thing I missed out on, when the young birds go over, canker them straight away. Well, after 2-3 days, canker the whole loft for 7 days, and that's it. A lot of people ask us about worming. Now, you never ever worm your pigeon during the season. It'll knock a pigeon off form. You never ever. If you're cankering your pigeons regularly, you'll never have worms. And that's a fact. And people who say they don't canker their pigeons will be the ones that are not winning every week. You have to keep on top of canker and respiratory, which will come in further videos. But I think I'll leave it there for this video. I hope it's helped, and I hope to see loads of young bird winners off this video. Thank you very much, and see you on the next one.